There is an illusion circulating today that a photograph is enough, a reel, an influencer with the right backdrop, and a place becomes exclusive. But no, it does not work that way. It has never worked that way. For a destination to become a haunt of European aristocracy, not the rich of yesterday, not the fortunate of today, but true aristocracy, centuries are required. Generations are required. Marriages, inheritances, properties passing from hand to hand like relics, deaths and births, scandals and silences, wars lost and fortunes rebuilt. And none of this can be bought. None of this can be accelerated. None of this can be posted. Consider this. How many places today proclaim themselves exclusive? How many sell themselves as the new paradise of the wealthy? And yet, this is the point. The true aristocrats of Europe continue to frequent the same places, the same as 100 years ago, the same as 200 years ago, because those places did not become exclusive by chance. They became exclusive through a slow, invisible, almost geological stratification. Families meeting in the same drawing rooms, signing marriage contracts before the same notaries, burying their dead in the same churchyards, generation after generation. Class is not an Instagram filter. It is the sedimentation of centuries. Take the Principality of Monaco. Today, everyone thinks casino, yachts, Russian billionaires. But the Principality of Monaco became the Principality of Monaco because the Grimaldis have governed that handkerchief of rock since the 13th century. Since the 13th century, 800 years of presence, of intermarriage with the reigning houses of Europe, of unions with the Polignacs, the Marauds, the Hanoverians. And when in the 19th century, the European aristocracy sought a place to winter, away from the fog, away from politics, Monaco was already there, with its history, with its palaces, with its families, and the entire Côte d'Azur, Nice, Cannes, Cap Ferrat, grew in the same manner. Not through an advertising campaign, but because Queen Victoria went there to die, because the Rothschilds built villas there, because the Russian Grand Dukes brought their mistresses and their melancholies there, layer upon layer, decade upon decade, until the place became inseparable from its people. Think of Gstaad, a village in the Swiss Alps, a few thousand inhabitants, nothing spectacular at first glance. But Gstaad is Gstaad because the Belgian royals went there, because the princes of Monaco skied there, because the families of Geneva, the bankers, the goldsmiths, the diplomats, bought chalets there and raised their children for generations. And that silence, that mountain silence which today seems so exclusive, was simply the silence of those who have no need to be seen. Think of Biarritz. Once it was a Basque fishing village. Then Empress Eugenie arrived. The life of Napoleon III, Spanish by birth. She loved the Atlantic. She loved the waves. And she transformed that village into a court. After her came the kings, the Durbans of Spain, the Windsors of England, even some Romanovs, before history swept them away. And Biarritz became what it remains today, not because of a luxury hotel, but because of 150 years of royal patronage. And then there is Cortina, Cortina d'Ampezzo, my Cortina, the queen of the Dolomites. But queen of which realm? Cortina was a place of Austrian influence for centuries, part of the Habsburg Empire. And when the Viennese aristocracy sought a place to breathe, away from the palaces, away from the courts, they chose those valleys, those peaks, that vertical silence. The Habsburgs themselves, the imperial family, frequented those mountains, and with them came the counts, the barons, the families who orbited the throne. They built villas, they purchased land, they married amongst themselves. And when the empire collapsed, when the Great War redrew everything, Cortina passed to Italy. But the families remained, the properties remained, the memory remained. And other families arrived, the Agnellis, the Pirellis, the great names of Italian industry. Not because Cortina was fashionable, but because Cortina already possessed that patina, that stratification, that invisible network of acquaintance and kinship, which made being there feel natural. And then came the 1956 Winter Olympics, and then the films, and then the jet set of the 60s and 70s. But all of this, do you understand? All of this grafted itself onto a history that was already there. It did not create Cortina. It merely rendered visible what Cortina had always been. Today, Cortina has hosted the Winter Olympics once more in 2026, and new cameras arrived, sponsors, new hotels. But did they change anything? Because the families who matter, those who have owned their villas for 3 generations, those who greet one another by surname, those who marry amongst themselves, those families were there before, and they shall be thereafter. This is the point. This is the secret no influencer can purchase. You may charter a yacht. You may rent a chalet. You may have yourself photographed in the right place. But you cannot invent a lineage. You cannot accelerate time. You cannot fabricate 3 generations of marriages, christenings, funerals in the same place. True class, the kind that has no need to display itself, is built with time, or it is inherited. But it is never bought, never. And perhaps this is what renders certain places still magnetic. Not the luxury, not the amenities, not the prices, but the sensation, subtle, almost imperceptible, that something has settled there, which cannot be replicated. Something to do with time, with memory, with the dead who walked those streets before us, and with the living who, consciously or not, continue to honor that memory, simply by being there, simply by returning, year after year, generation after generation,